After her miscarriage, Elise Emery became exactly the wife Colsen Locke had always wanted. She quit telling him about her day, quit calling when he stayed out all night. Even when an old man falsely accused her of hitting him with her car, she didn't call anyone, didn't ask for bail. She just spent 7 days in custody. At dusk on the 7th day, the precinct's iron gate clanged open. Elise had barely made it down the steps when a black Maybach screeched to a stop in front of her. The door swung open. Colsen stepped out in a custom suit, tall and lean, all broad shoulders and cold control. Same polished look, same unreadable face. He strode over, brows pinched. "Elise, why didn't you call me when you got in trouble?" Elise gave him a thin smile. "Would you have answered?" 7 days ago, she'd been driving home from work when an old man suddenly dropped in front of her car. The second she got out to help, he grabbed her arm and yelled, "She hit me." She tried to take off. Security footage proved Elise hadn't touched him, but she still needed someone to post bail. She told the cops she had no family to call. They didn't buy it. They pulled up her marriage records and found Colsen's number. His phone was off. They called again and again. Nothing. Colsen's expression changed. "Bella's stomach was hurting that night, so I took her to the hospital. She hates noise, so I shut my phone off." He paused. "Sorry. It's fine. I wasn't going to call you anyway. You had your own stuff going on." Her voice was way too calm. Her eyes gave nothing away. Colsen stared at her, then grabbed her wrist. His hand was hot, his grip tight. Elise frowned. "Why aren't you mad?" Confusion flashed in his eyes, along with something close to unease. Elise almost laughed. "Why would I be? You explained. I get it. There's nothing to be mad about." "Elise. I'm tired. I want to go home." She yanked her hand free and walked past him toward the car. Colsen stood there, watching her walk away. After only 7 days apart, she'd lost so much weight her shirt hung loose on her. Before, the slightest neglect would bring tears to her eyes. She'd confront him, hurt. "Colsen, did you ever care about me?" He'd always thought she was being dramatic and immature. But now she didn't argue, didn't cry. No matter what he said, she just nodded. "Okay." Still, it made him uneasy. The car was silent. The chauffeur drove while Elise sat by the back window, watching the streets blur past. She used to look at Colsen the second she got in, like he was all she could see. Whenever they were alone, she always had something to say. Even when he barely responded, she'd keep talking. Now she sat in silence, like he wasn't even there. Colsen finally spoke. "Are you still upset about what happened?" Elise turned to him, calm. "No. It's over." "Then why?" "Colsen." She cut him off. "What do you want from me? To cling to you like I used to? Or stay quiet and give you all the freedom you wanted?" Colsen had no answer. Of course he'd wanted her to stop making a big deal out of everything, especially Bella Kirk. But now that she had, something fell off. Everything fell off. "You've changed," he said quietly. Elise turned back to the window. "Have I changed? Maybe. You're different when you love someone and when you don't." The car went quiet again. Colsen was about to speak when his phone rang. "Bella." He answered, and her sweet voice came through. "Colsen, where are you? I'm at the mall and bought way too much. Can you come get me?" Colsen glanced at Elise. She kept staring out the window like she hadn't heard a thing. Irritation hit him out of nowhere. "Bella, you're an adult. Stop depending on me for everything. Besides, there's nothing between us anymore. But you spoiled me for years." "I'm used to it," Bella said. "You never said no when I asked you to pick me up before." "That was before." His voice turned cold. "You were my girlfriend then. I'm married now." "Married?" Bella scoffed. "Do you even care about her? Stop lying to yourself. If you won't come, I'll find another guy to carry my stuff. Plenty of men would love to." Colsen's grip tightened around his phone. Bella knew exactly how to get to him. She knew he hated the thought of her running to some other guy. "Wait there," he said through clenched teeth, then hung up. He took a breath and turned to Elise. "Elise, I'll grab a cab." Elise was already opening the door. "Go get her." She moved so fast he barely reacted. "Elise." He jumped out, caught up, and grabbed her arm. "There's nothing between us anymore. Seriously. But we grew up together, and our families go way back. I can't just cut her off." "I know." Elise nodded. "I get it." It was always "I know" or "I get it," like she'd shut off every emotion. That blank, distant look only pissed Colsen off more, but Bella called again, telling him to hurry. "Go home first. I'll be back later." Too late. Elise had already flagged down a cab. She got in and shut the door, without even looking at him. Then she was gone. Colsen stood there, watching the taillights disappear into traffic. For the first time, it hit him. Something had really changed. Meanwhile, Elise's phone rang in the cab. "HR. Miss Emery, your overseas transfer was approved," the woman said brightly. "Congrats. You're heading to our European headquarters. It's a huge opportunity. But what about your husband? You have no idea when you'll be back. You'd be doing long distance." Elise watched the neon lights streak past the window. I won't have a husband. Her voice stayed soft. I filed for divorce the same day I applied for the transfer. Once it's final, I'm gone. The line went quiet for a few seconds. Seriously? You loved him so much. You passed up so many amazing opportunities because of him. Why now? Elise gave a small smile and shook her head. I don't love him anymore. After hanging up, she leaned against the window and closed her eyes. Everyone knew how much she'd loved Colsen. Too much. She'd lost herself. Thrown away every ounce of pride she had. But she was done. Loving someone who wanted someone else was exhausting. When Elise was 18, a freshman in college, she first saw Colsen at an award ceremony. It was a bright, sunny day. He stood on stage in a plain white shirt and black pants, confident and totally put together. Pretty much every girl in the room blushed, Elise included, but nobody could get close to him. Everyone knew Colsen only had eyes for Bella, the girl he'd grown up with. Bella was dramatic, bossy, and had a temper, but Colsen spoiled her rotten and let her get away with anything. Everyone said he was obsessed with her. And while Colsen loved Bella, Elise loved him from a distance. Then Bella ran out on their wedding. Again. And again. The first time, she said she was too young. The second, she got cold feet. The third, she claimed Colsen didn't love her enough. By the 9th time, she called from overseas the night before the wedding. Colsen, I've been thinking. I still care more about my freedom. Let's not get married yet. I want to travel for a few years first. That time, Colsen didn't chase after her. He was down for a while. Then, he finally agreed to let his family set him up. Date after date. None made it past the first one. Elise's heart jumped when she heard. After asking around, she finally got set up with him. That day, on impulse, she wore a dress identical to Bella's. The second Colsen saw her, he froze. He stared for a long moment. Let's get married. Elise's heart dropped. She knew he wasn't really seeing her. He was seeing Bella. Still, she nodded. She loved him that much. Even knowing he felt nothing for her, she still wanted to stay by his side. After they got married, they were polite but distant. Colsen treated her well. He gave her everything money could buy and always respected her in public. But Elise knew better. That wasn't love. He never touched her first. Only when she dressed like Bella would he lose control, pull her into his arms, and call her Bella. Every time, Elise pretended she didn't hear. 5 years passed like that. She thought they could keep going forever. Then Bella came back. Elise was 3 months pregnant when a sharp pain hit her stomach. She clutched it and reached for her phone to call an ambulance. Then Bella showed up. So you're Elise? Bella looked her up and down. I heard you took my place while I was gone. Elise was pale from the pain. She didn't have the energy to argue. She just needed to get to the hospital. She tried to walk past her, but Bella blocked the way. During the struggle, Elise pulled away. Bella stumbled back and hit her head on the doorframe. Blood started pouring from the cut. That night, Colsen locked Elise in a room. Her stomach hurt so bad it felt like something was tearing her apart. She pounded on the door. Colsen, help me, the baby, our baby. No one came. She curled up on the floor, shaking in pain. Then she felt something warm beneath her. She reached down. Blood. Eventually she blacked out. When she woke up, she was in the hospital. The baby was gone. Colsen stood beside her bed, guilt written all over his face. It was my fault. After you're discharged, we can try for another baby. But if you hadn't pushed Bella, I wouldn't have locked you up. She has a clotting disorder. That shove almost killed her. I panicked. I'll make it up to you. Elise laughed. She laughed until tears ran down her face. Colsen, how could you possibly make up for a life? That was the first and last time she ever cried in front of him. After that, she was done. She secretly filed for divorce and applied for a transfer overseas. Whatever happened between Colsen and Bella wasn't her problem anymore. Because she didn't love him anymore. Elise went home alone. The mansion felt huge, empty, and cold. She changed her shoes, headed upstairs, and started packing. She'd already packed most of her stuff in secret. Only a few things were left. One by one, she pulled out the clothes she bought to dress like Bella, folded them, and put them in her suitcase. She'd never wear them again. Then the front door opened downstairs. Colsen was back. And he wasn't alone. Bella stood at the bottom of the stairs, flashing Elise a sweet smile. Elise. Long time no see. Elise said nothing. Bella wanted to see Snowy. Colsen sounded a little awkward. It's been a while. Snowy was the dog Colsen and Bella had gotten when they were together. When Bella moved overseas, she left it with Colsen. After Elise married Colsen, she was the one who took care of Snowy. Whatever. Elise turned toward her room. Snowy. Snowy. Bella crouched down and clapped her hands. A white Samoyed came charging around the corner. The second Snowy saw Bella, it raced straight to her, tail going crazy. Oh my god, Snowy still remembers me. Bella wrapped her arms around it, grinning. Guess even after some other woman raised you all these years, you still know who your real mom is. The jab was obvious. Elise stopped. Colsen frowned. Bella, you left the country without a word and didn't even take Snowy with you. You lost the right to call yourself its mom a long time ago. You've seen it. Now go.
Bella pouted.
It's dark and it's pouring outside. I don't want to go home alone. Can I stay here tonight? Colsen was about to say no, but rain hammered against the windows, thunder rolling outside. He glanced at Elise, already bracing himself. Bella staying over always used to upset her, and calming her down took forever. But Elise spoke first. Guest room's at the end of the hall downstairs. The sheets are clean. Her voice stayed calm. Stay if you want. Then she turned and went back to her room. Colsen froze. Bella looked surprised too, but quickly smiled and hooked her arm through his. See, Colsen? Even your wife said it's fine. Colsen stared at Elise's closed door. That weird feeling hit him again. He pulled his arm free. Behave.
His phone rang. Work.
He glanced at Bella. Stay out of trouble. Then he headed to his study. Bella was alone in the living room. Her smile dropped instantly. She walked over to Elise's room and knocked. Elise opened the door. Bella leaned against the frame, looking her up and down. Why act so cool about this? You think letting me stay makes you look like the understanding wife?
Please.
I'll show you just how badly you failed. After all these years, you couldn't win Colsen's heart. You couldn't even win over a dog. She whistled. Snowy came running. Snowy. Bella pointed at Elise.
Go.
Bite her. Snowy hesitated, but Bella kept pushing until it lunged and sank its teeth into Elise's calf. Elise cried out, caught completely off guard. Her face went pale.
Bella smiled, satisfied. See?
You took care of that dog for years, and even it doesn't love you. And you seriously thought you could take Colsen from me? Give it up. Pain and humiliation left Elise ice cold, but she bit her lip, refusing to make another sound. She gave Bella an icy look. Forgot to mention something, Bella. The common areas in this house, the stairs, the halls, all have security cameras. 24/7. Everything's recorded. She held Bella's gaze. So if you want to stay tonight and win Colsen back, leave me alone. Otherwise, I'll show him the footage. Think he'll still let you stay after that? Bella's face changed. Elise turned around, went back to her room, and shut the door. She grabbed the first aid kit from a drawer and cleaned the bite. The antiseptic stung like hell, but she didn't flinch. When she was done, she climbed into bed and closed her eyes. No warm milk for Colsen. No waiting up for him to finish work. No good night. She just went to sleep. In the middle of the night, thick smoke jolted Elise awake. She opened her eyes and immediately started coughing. Smoke filled the room. She jumped out of bed and opened the door. Flames tore through the hallway. Fire. She gripped the wall and stumbled forward, but after a few steps, the smoke hit her hard. Her legs gave out. She crashed to the scorching floor and tried to get back up. Nothing. She had no strength left. Just when she thought she was going to die, someone charged through the flames. Colsen. He was still in his pajamas, soot streaked across his face as he frantically looked around. Elise tried to call out, but the smoke had stolen her voice. She reached for him, hoping he'd see her. He didn't. Colsen rushed straight past her toward the corner. Snowy was curled up there, shaking. Colsen scooped it up and ran without even looking back. Elise watched him disappear into the flames. Then she laughed. Tears streamed down her face. He came for the dog. To Colsen, I'm worth less than a dog. The smoke got thicker, and Elise's head started spinning. Gritting her teeth, she forced herself up against the wall and stumbled toward the door. A fallen beam blocked the way. No chance. Elise stared at the flames, then rushed to the window. She shoved it open, and the cold air cleared her head a little. Down below, Colsen ran out carrying Snowy. Bella threw herself into his arms. Colsen. I was so scared. Tears poured down her face. I thought Snowy was going to die in there. We raised it together. It's been part of us from the start. Colsen stiffened, like he wanted to pull away. But with Bella crying that hard, he finally lifted a hand and patted her back. Don't cry. It's okay now. Snowy's safe. So are you. Watching them, Elise felt something inside her go cold. Then numb. She stopped waiting for someone to save her. She climbed onto the windowsill, took a breath, closed her eyes, and jumped. The fall lasted seconds. Too fast to even feel scared. Then, thud. Pain ripped through her body. She lay there as warm blood pooled beneath her. Mrs. Locke. Oh my God. Mrs. Locke jumped. At the maid's scream, Colsen spun around. Then he saw Elise, lying in a pool of blood. Elise. For the first time, she saw something new on his face. Shock, disbelief, and even panic. Elise looked at him and tried to speak, but only blood came out. Then everything went black. When Elise woke up again, the sharp smell of antiseptic hit her. White ceiling. She tried to move, but pain shot through her whole body, especially her legs. Elise. She turned her head. Colsen sat beside the bed, eyes bloodshot, stubble covering his jaw. He looked wrecked. He grabbed her hand. You're awake? How do you feel? Does anything hurt? His voice shook. Elise didn't answer. She just slowly pulled her hand out of his. Colsen's hand froze in midair. His face changed. He figured she was mad about the fire. About him not saving her first. Elise, he started quietly. When I went in, I didn't see you. I thought you'd already gotten out, so I grabbed Snowy. It's not just some dog. It's… Elise almost laughed. It's what? A symbol of your love for Bella? Proof of all those perfect memories you two had. If you were in there, why didn't you call me? Why didn't I call you? Elise finally looked at him.
No anger.
No hope.
Just calm.
Because I don't expect anything from you anymore. Colsen flinched, like she'd hit him. What do you mean you don't expect anything from me? His voice was rough. Something hollow opened in his chest. Elise looked at him like he was a stranger. Exactly what I said.
I don't expect you to save me. Choose me.
Or love me. Colsen's heart lurched. He opened his mouth, but his phone rang.
Bella.
He walked to the window and answered with his back to Elise. She couldn't hear what Bella was saying. She only saw the tension in his face. At first, he sounded annoyed. Then he finally gave in. I know. He hung up and came back to the bed, looking torn. Before he could say anything, Elise beat him to it. Go. Her voice stayed painfully calm. I really don't need anyone here. Colsen's chest tightened so badly, he could barely breathe. He opened his mouth, but in the end, all he said was, Bella's dealing with something. I need to handle it. I'll be back soon. After a beat, he added, I know you're mad about what happened. That's why you're saying stuff you don't mean. Don't worry. It won't happen again. He paused. The anniversary of your mom's death is in a few days. I'll go with you to visit her grave. Elise's lashes trembled. My mom's death anniversary is the same day as Bella's birthday. She let out a quiet laugh. Aren't you going to celebrate with her? Colsen clearly hadn't expected that. His face stiffened for half a second. Then he looked away. What does her birthday have to do with me? Elise almost smiled. How could it not? In 5 years of marriage, Colsen always had something that day. Year 1, a business trip. Year 2, a meeting. Year 3, a client. Only later did Elise find out the truth. Her mom's death anniversary was Bella's birthday. Every year, Colsen flew more than 10 hours to see Bella overseas, stood outside her place all night, left a gift, then walked away. This year, Bella was back. Now, he could see her himself. Show her exactly how he felt. Oh, really? Elise said nothing else. Too tired to keep talking, she closed her eyes. Her silence only frustrated Colsen more, but he had nowhere to put that anger. He stared at Elise's pale face, her eyes still closed. There's nothing between Bella and me. Don't get the wrong idea. The words almost came out, but in the end, he just said, get some rest. I'll come back later. Then he turned and hurried out of the room. Over the next few days, Elise stayed in the hospital and focused on healing. Colsen stopped by a few times with expensive flowers and gift baskets. He never stayed long. His phone was always going off. Elise didn't argue.
Didn't complain.
No matter what he said, all he got was, nothing else. And somehow, that left him completely helpless. The day she was discharged, Colsen brought flowers and went with her to the cemetery outside the city. As the view outside the window grew more familiar, Elise almost laughed. 5 years. And this was the first time her husband had ever gone with her to visit her mom's grave. The cemetery was quiet, wind whispering through the trees. Colsen stood in front of the headstone, staring at the photo of the woman who looked so much like Elise. For a long time, he said nothing. Mrs. Emery, he finally said, his voice rough, I'm sorry it took me this long to come see you. He paused. I'll take care of Elise from now on. You don't have to worry. I won't let her get hurt again. Elise stared at her mom's gentle smile in the photo. Mom, did you hear that? The man I loved for 10 years finally says he'll take care of me. But he's too late. Way too late. I don't need it anymore. After the cemetery, Colsen took Elise to a restaurant she'd always wanted to try. It was an exclusive French place that was almost impossible to book. She'd brought it up plenty of times before. Colsen always said he was too busy. Today, he'd reserved the entire restaurant and set up a candlelit dinner. I remember you wanted to come here.
He pulled out her chair.
Try the food. See if you like it. Elise sat down and stared at the fancy dishes. She felt nothing. Halfway through dinner, Colsen's phone rang again.
Bella.
Bella's angry voice came through loud enough for Elise to hear every word. Colsen, you spend days planning this huge birthday party for me, so why aren't you here? Colsen frowned and glanced at Elise. She just kept cutting her steak, calm as ever, like she hadn't heard a thing. I'm busy, he said. What could be more important than my birthday? Get over here right now, or I'm not celebrating at all. Colsen finally hung up. He turned to Elise, clearly about to explain. Too late. She'd already put down her knife and fork.
Go.
I'm done anyway. Elise, Bella just got back to Santoria and wanted to get everyone together, but she didn't know how to plan the party, so I helped, Colsen said. It didn't mean anything. I know. Elise nodded. I get it. There it was again. Colsen's frustration flared. I'll take you with me, he said suddenly. It's close anyway. We'll stop by, then leave. Might get you out for a bit. Elise was about to say no, but Colsen was already standing. Come on. Bella's birthday party was in the ballroom of a luxury hotel. By the time Elise and Colsen got there, the place was packed. Bella stood in the middle of the crowd in a red gown, soaking up the attention. The second she saw Colsen, her face lit up. Colsen, you finally came. She hurried over and hooked her arm through his, totally ignoring Elise.
Bella.
Colsen frowned and tried to pull away. Dance with me, Bella said. Come on. It's been forever. Colsen looked at Elise. She was staring at a painting on the wall like none of this had anything to do with her. Elise. Go ahead. I'll grab something to eat. Then she turned and headed for the buffet. Colsen froze. Before, just seeing him talk to Bella was enough to make Elise tear up. And now she's seriously pushing me toward her? It took Colsen a second to realize Bella had already dragged him onto the dance floor. When the music started, he put an arm around her waist. But his eyes kept drifting to Elise. She stood by the buffet, eating tiny bites of cake, looking like she couldn't care less about any of this. Bella noticed and frowned. If you're that worried about her, go find her. I'll dance with someone else. She let go of him and headed toward a guy in a white suit.
Owen.
Her college friend. The guy who'd always been into her. The second she walked over, he eagerly held out his hand. Bella slipped her hand into Owen's, and they headed onto the dance floor. Colsen stayed put, watching them laugh together. His face darkened. Bella seemed to notice. Then she moved even closer to Owen. Too close. She leaned in and whispered something in his ear. Owen laughed, dipped his head, and kissed her cheek.
Crack.
The wine glass shattered in Colsen's hand. Wine and blood ran over his fingers, but he didn't even react. He stormed across the floor, grabbed Bella by the wrist, and yanked her away. Colsen, what are you doing? Let go of me. Bella struggled against him. Colsen said nothing. His face was furious as he practically dragged Bella out of the ballroom and onto the empty balcony. He backed her against the cold railing. Bella, do you seriously have no shame? Bella froze, then snapped. She ripped her hand free.
Nos chum?
I'm single.
So is he.
We both wanted it, so what's your problem? Who are you to tell me what to do, Colsen? My ex? Or someone else's husband? You. Colsen's eyes went red. Something in him snapped. He stared at the woman he'd loved for years as jealousy, anger, and emotions he couldn't even name tore through him. Then he grabbed her and kissed her.
Hard. Nothing sweet about it.
Just angry and possessive. Bella froze at first. Then triumph flashed in her eyes. Instead of pulling away, she wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him back. The balcony doors were frosted, hiding them from the party. But Elise stood at just the right angle to see through a gap. She saw everything.
Colsen kissing Bella.
Bella's arms around his neck. The two of them completely lost in each other. Elise felt nothing. Just numb disbelief at how ridiculous it all was. The kiss went on until they were both out of breath. Then Colsen suddenly shoved Bella away, like he'd snapped out of it. He stared at her red lips and dazed expression. Panic hit him. Then disgust with himself.
Sorry.
He looked away, his voice rough. I drank too much. I thought you were Elise. Bella clearly didn't buy it. She stepped closer and wrapped her arms around his waist, her voice shaky. You've never loved Elise. How could you possibly mistake me for her? Stop lying to yourself, Colsen. You still love me. You can't let me go. She looked up at him. Can we stop doing this to each other? Divorce Elise and come back to me. I swear I won't be selfish like before. I'll love you. I'll be a good Mrs. Locke. Okay. Divorce Elise? Get back together. The words hit Colsen like a punch. He shoved Bella away, like she'd burned him. What are you talking about? I'm not divorcing Elise.
Why?
Because she's followed you around like a puppy for 5 years. Bella snapped. How long are you going to keep running from how you really feel? If you seriously don't love me anymore, if you don't care about me at all, then I might as well die. She spun around and rushed for the edge of the balcony, like she was actually going to jump.
Bella.
Are you crazy?
Colsen's face changed.
He lunged for her. Then the huge crystal chandelier overhead creaked.
And dropped.
Straight toward Bella. Watch out. Colsen's eyes went wide. Without thinking, he threw himself over Bella and rolled them out of the way.
Crash.
The chandelier slammed into the floor, crystal exploding everywhere. Several large shards sliced across Colsen's back. Blood poured from the cuts, soaking his expensive suit. Colsen. Oh my God, you're bleeding.
Bella cried.
The crash sent everyone rushing over from the ballroom. Instant chaos. Someone called an ambulance while others crowded around to help. Elise stood at the edge of it all, completely unmoved. The whole thing just felt ridiculous. She didn't go over. Didn't ask if he was okay. Didn't stay another second. As ambulance sirens wailed outside, she quietly turned and walked away. Colsen was in the hospital. Elise didn't visit. She stayed home, living her life, reading, watching movies, packing. Then one evening, Tony, the butler, called. Mrs. Locke, can you come to the hospital? Mr. Locke's stomach is acting up again. He's in a lot of pain, and the meds aren't helping. He's sweating like crazy and won't let the nurses near him. You used to massage his stomach. That was the only thing that helped. We don't know what else to do." Elise walked to the window and stared out at the rain-soaked city. Rain hammered the glass like it was trying to drown the whole world. When Tony finished, she calmly said, "It's raining too hard. I'm not going." Silence. "And Mrs. Locke, what did you say?" "I said it's pouring, and I don't want to go out. I'm not coming tonight. But Mr. Locke, I'm going to bed." Elise cut him off. "Good night." She hung up, shut off her phone, and went to bed. Everything else could stay outside. The next day, Colsen checked out early and came home. He was still pale. When he saw Elise on the couch reading, he stopped for a second before walking over. "Last night."
His voice was low.
"Tony called you." "Yeah." Elise flipped a page, without looking up. "Why didn't you come?" Colsen held something back in his voice. "Before, no matter how bad the weather was, if I even said I wasn't feeling well, you'd come running." Elise stopped. Then she looked up at him, completely calm. "You said it yourself. That was before." Her voice was soft, but the words hit hard. "People change." Colsen opened his mouth. Nothing came out. "She's right.
People change.
Elise changed. He just didn't know when.
Or why.
And somehow that bothered him more than it should. He figured she was still pissed that he'd gotten hurt protecting Bella and was giving him the cold shoulder. "In a few days, it's our anniversary," he said, trying to break the tension. "You always wanted to celebrate it properly, right? This year, I'll throw a party. Invite everyone. How's that?" He watched her, waiting for something. Anything. Elise barely reacted. "Whatever. Whatever." Again. Colsen's irritation flared. Still, he started planning the party. He booked the most expensive hotel, hired the best planner, picked out a designer gown, and bought her insanely expensive jewelry. The night of the party, Elise walked into the ballroom on his arm, wearing everything he'd chosen. Heads turned. Elise is so lucky. Colsen treats her like a queen. "I heard that necklace went for millions at auction." Elise heard every word. She just smiled politely. Felt nothing. Halfway through the party, she slipped out onto the balcony for some air. A second later, footsteps came up behind her.
"Bella."
"Why are you here?" Elise turned to her. "Colsen invited me." Bella leaned against the railing. "He said it's your anniversary and wanted me here to see how happy you are." She smiled.
"So, Elise."
"Are you happy?" Elise said nothing. Bella stepped closer. "I know you're not. Colsen only has me in his heart. You're just some pathetic replacement. At my birthday party, he—"
"Bella."
Elise cut her off, calm as ever. "You know what? You're exhausting." Bella's face changed. Elise met her eyes. "You're like a kid throwing a tantrum because she didn't get her way. Whatever happens between Colsen and me is none of your business. And someone who keeps dragging up the past and picking fights just to feel important? Not worth my energy. You." The pity in Elise's eyes pushed Bella over the edge. Her gaze flicked to the low balcony railing behind Elise. Then her face twisted. "Go to hell." She shoved Elise with both hands.
Hard.
Elise lost her balance instantly. As she tipped backward over the railing, instinct kicked in. She reached out blindly and grabbed Bella's wrist before she could pull away.
Ah.
They both screamed. Most of Elise's body was already over the edge. The only thing keeping her up was her grip on Bella's wrist. Bella had been dragged against the railing and was freaking out, clutching it with her free hand. "Help. Colsen. Help me." Her screams brought everyone running out from the ballroom. Colsen got there first. The second he saw them, his face went white. "Colsen. Save me. I'm gonna fall." Bella sobbed, reaching for him with the hand she'd been using to hold on. Colsen looked between them. Elise, hanging there in silence, teeth clenched, and Bella, crying for him to save her. In that split second, Colsen barely hesitated. He lunged forward and grabbed Bella's hand. "Elise, hold on a little longer." His voice shook as he looked down at her. "I'll pull Bella up first, then I'll get you." Elise looked at him. Then she smiled and let go. Her body dropped through the air, wind roaring past her ears. Then,
splash.
She slammed into the pool below. Ice-cold water swallowed her whole. Elise closed her eyes and blacked out. When Elise woke up, she was back in her own bed. Someone had changed her into clean pajamas and treated her injuries. The room was empty. She checked her phone. A text from Colsen. "Elise, Bella was really shaken, so I took her to the hospital.
Get some rest.
I'll explain everything when I get back. I'll make it up to you. Make it up to me. Again." Elise stared at the message, almost laughing. When you really love someone, you shouldn't have to keep making things up to them. "Colsen, I don't love you anymore. I don't want anything from you. I just want this over."
No, Thais.
No looking back. Just gone. Elise's phone chimed again. Another text. This time, from the court clerk's office. "Ms. Emery, your divorce from Colsen Locke is final. Please pick up a certified copy of the divorce decree from the clerk's office within 3 business days." It's final. Elise stared at the message for a long moment. Then she slowly exhaled. 5 years of hurt,
Pain.
struggle, resentment. She let it all go. Elise got out of bed and finished packing. There wasn't much left. Most of her stuff was already boxed up. She tossed the last few clothes into her suitcase and zipped it shut. Then she booked a flight to Europe. 3 o'clock that afternoon. She dragged her suitcase downstairs. Tony froze when he saw her. "Mrs. Locke, are you?" "I'm leaving. Thanks for taking care of me all these years."
What?
"But Mr. Locke, we're divorced." Elise smiled. "Starting today, I'm not Mrs. Locke anymore." She wheeled her suitcase out of the mansion and grabbed a cab to the courthouse. When she got the divorce decree, she glanced down at it. Her name, Colsen's, side by side on the page. Cold. Final. Good. It's finally over. She took another cab to the airport, checked in, and waited at her gate.
Her phone rang.
Colsen. She ignored it. He called again.
And again.
Elise shut off her phone. The boarding call came over the speakers. Elise stood, grabbed her suitcase, and headed for the gate. As the plane took off, she watched the city shrink below. For once, her heart felt completely calm. Goodbye, Colsen. Goodbye to the past. From now on, I'm choosing me. The plane climbed above the clouds, straight toward her new life. The corridor outside room 402 of St. Jude's private hospital smelled of floor, wax, and stale lilies. Colsen Locke adjusted his cufflinks, the tension in his neck refusing to loosen. Even after the doctor had assured him, 3 times, that Bella had sustained nothing more than mild contusions and a hysterical episode. "She needs quiet, Mr. Locke," the physician had murmured, glancing warily at Colsen's rumpled shirt, still stained at the collar with dry pool water from the hotel terrace. "No visitors who might agitate her." "I understand," Colsen had said. He had signed the admission guarantee, authorized the highest-tier private care, and walked out without waiting for Bella to wake up from her sedative. For the last 3 hours, a quiet, insistent thrumming had been beating against the inside of his skull. It wasn't Bella's panicked cries he heard when he closed his eyes. It was the sound of Elise's fingers sliding cleanly against the iron balustrade. She hadn't screamed. When he lunged forward and gripped Bella's wrist, calculating in a split-second fraction of logic that he could anchor Bella first, then swing his weight back to haul Elise over. Elise had simply looked up at him through the twilight. Her dark eyes had been clear. Not terrified. Not even betrayed. Just terribly, terribly empty. And then she had smiled, let go, and dropped.
Splash.
The sound had reverberated through the stone courtyard, shattering the crystal water of the decorative pool 2 stories below. By the time he had sprinted down the winding marble stairs, Tony and 3 security guards had already fished her
Out.
She was breathing, coughing water, her skin gray and freezing, but her eyes had stayed closed. She hadn't looked at him once. He sat in the back of the Maybach now, rubbing his temples. "Step on it," he told the chauffeur. "Yes, Mr. Locke." It was nearly noon by the time the car swept through the wrought iron gates of the Locke estate on Crestview Hill. The rain from the previous night had cleared, leaving the manicured lawn washed in a pale, sterile sunlight. Colsen stepped out, pushing through the heavy mahogany front doors. Elise. Silence. The foyer was usually subtly warm, scented with the subtle white cedar diffuser Elise liked, or carrying the faint aroma of the black tea she brewed in the late
Morning.
Today, the air felt cold, drafts moving through the open corridor like an uninhabited gallery. Tony, the butler, stood at the base of the grand staircase. He had his hands folded in front of him, his posture stiff, holding a flat manila folder.
Where is she?
Colsen demanded, shedding his trench coat and tossing it toward the bench. Is she still resting? Did the private doctor come by to check her ribs after the fall? Tony did not move to catch the coat. It slipped to the floor. "Mrs. Locke is not upstairs, sir," Tony said softly. Colsen paused, his brow furrowing in irritation. "Did she go to the clinic on her own? I left her a message telling her to stay in bed until I got back." "She didn't go to the clinic, Mr. Locke." Tony stepped forward and placed the folder on the console table beneath the gilded mirror. "She left at 9 this morning with 2 suitcases." Colsen froze. The irritation in his chest snapped into something sharp and defensive. "What do you mean she left? Did you let her wander out alone after almost drowning last night?" "I had no legal authority to detain her, sir," Tony replied, his voice level, carrying a chilling professional neutrality that Colsen had never heard from the old family servant before. "And Mrs. Locke made it very clear that she is no longer Mrs. Locke." "Nonsense." Colsen scoffed, though his fingers trembled slightly as he reached for the folder. "She's throwing another tantrum because I grabbed Bella first on the balcony. She always does this, going quiet, giving me the cold shoulder.
She
thinks she can frighten me by packing a bag." He flipped open the folder. Inside lay 2 documents. The first was an official certified copy of a divorce decree issued by the Santoria First Circuit Family Court, bearing a red wax seal and dated 2 days prior. The second was a formal receipt confirming that Elise Emery had renounced all claims to marital real estate, the Locke Group shares allotted during their wedding, and all alimony provisions, taking only her personal bank account from before the marriage and her premarital vehicle. Colsen stared at the decree, his breath hitched in his throat. Date of initial filing, March 14th. March 14th. That was the night she had been discharged from the hospital after her miscarriage. The night he had stood by her bed, stammering apologies, promising they could have another child, while she had simply laughed until tears leaked into her hair. She filed for divorce 5 months ago. For 5 whole months, while she quietly ironed his shirts, attended family banquets on his arm, smiled politely at his business partners, and answered his dismissive comments with mild nods, she had been waiting for the court's mandatory cooling-off period to expire. Every single compliant I know, every gentle it's fine. Every time she had stepped aside to let him run to Bella, it hadn't been surrender. It had been detachment. Colsen. A voice drifted from the door. Bella walked in, leaning against the frame in an oversized cashmere knit, her forehead bandaged, looking pale and fragile. Colsen, my driver said your car was here. My head hurt so much, and the hospital was so loud. Colsen didn't look at her. He didn't hear her. He dropped the papers onto the marble console and bolted up the stairs 2 steps at a time. Colsen. Bella cried after him, bewildered. He threw open the master bedroom door. The king-sized bed was stripped bare, the mattress covered in its protective white linen. The vanity table, usually cluttered with small bottles of skincare, serum and hairpins, was completely wiped down. Not a dust particle remained. Colsen lunged toward the walk-in closet and yanked the sliding doors apart. One entire half of the closet was empty, except for the lower rack. Hanging there were dozens of dresses, canary yellow silk, scarlet A-line slips, pastel-pleated skirts with high necklines. Every single piece was identical, or near identical to the wardrobe Bella had worn throughout her 20s. Every dress was neatly encased in dry-cleaning plastic. On the leftmost hanger, a small handwritten card was pinned. Return to the Locke estate. I have no further use for someone else's skin. Colsen stepped back as if he had been struck across the face. The blood rushed out of his cheeks, leaving him dizzy and hollowed out. He pulled his phone from his pocket with shaking hands and dialed Elise's number. The number you have dialed is currently switched off or outside the coverage area. He hung up and dialed again. Switched off. He called the Locke Group's HR director. Find Elise Emery. Trace her social security number, her passport renewals, her flight records.
Now.
Mr. Locke. The director sounded bewildered. Mrs. Locke resigned from her domestic post 3 weeks ago. Her transfer was processed directly through the European Regional Board. The Executive Mobility Program is classified under standard privacy protocols. I don't give a damn about protocols. Colsen roared into the receiver, his voice cracking with a raw, violent panic he had never known he possessed.
Find
out what flight she took. Find out where she landed. The Santoria police precinct was quiet at midnight, but inside the private surveillance suite of the Locke Group headquarters, the lights remained blindingly harsh. Colsen sat at the head of the conference table. His tie was undone, his expensive shirt wrinkled and damp with sweat. Beside him stood his head of security, Mark Vance, alongside 2 private investigators. We couldn't intercept the passenger manifest in time, Mr. Locke, Vance murmured cautiously. Ms. Emery boarded a Lufthansa flight to Frankfurt at 3:15
p.m.
From Frankfurt, she held multiple connecting boarding passes, Zurich, London, Geneva, and Stockholm. She deliberately used staggered transfers. By the time our contacts at Heathrow flagged her name, she had already cleared customs and disappeared into the city. Disappeared? Colsen slammed his palm against the glass table. A woman who lived with me for 5 years doesn't just disappear into thin air. She has no family. Her mother died 6 years ago. Where would she go? She had a life before you, sir. Tony's voice cut in quietly from the doorway. The old butler walked in, setting down a black USB flash drive on the glass surface. What is this? Colsen asked, his voice hoarse. 3 days ago, when Mrs. Locke was bitten by the dog, she reminded Miss Kirk that the mansion's internal corridors were wired for security, Tony said. Ms. Kirk assumed she was bluffing. She wasn't. Our estate system records 7-day cycles automatically. I thought you ought to see what happened while you were in your study. Colsen's fingers hesitated. A cold dread, heavier than lead, seeped into his
bones.
He took the drive and pushed it toward the technician. Play it. The giant wall monitor flickered to life. The high-definition feed displayed the downstairs living room, dated 3 nights prior. Colsen saw himself walking into the study with his phone pressed to his ear. On screen, Bella waited until his door clicked shut. The sweet, fragile smile melted from her face instantly, replaced by a curled, mocking sneer. She knocked on Elise's door, baited her into the hallway, and then called Snowy.
Snowy, go.
Bite her. The audio was horrifyingly crisp. They watched as Snowy, confused by the hostile tone, hesitated. Then Bella shoved the dog forward, screaming commands until the Samoyed lunged, burying its teeth into Elise's calf. Elise did not scream. On the high-definition monitor, her face went stark white, her hand gripping the doorframe so hard her knuckles turned purple. And then came Bella's gloating laugh. You took care of that dog for years, and even it doesn't love you. Give it up. Colsen's breath caught in his throat. His fingernails dug into his palms until they drew blood. Next file. Vance whispered nervously. The screen shifted. This time, it was the exterior terrace camera from the hotel rooftop during the anniversary gala. The footage revealed what the crowd inside hadn't seen. Elise had been standing near the balustrade, looking at the city lights.
Bella
Had marched up to her, her face contorted in rage, screaming words masked by the
wind.
And then, with deliberate, calculated force, Bella had extended both arms and shoved Elise backward over the low marble rail. Elise had caught Bella's wrist only to save her own life. And when Colsen had burst through the doors, Bella had started wailing like an innocent victim, sobbing about how she was going to fall. The camera zoomed in on Colsen's face on the recording, panicked, terrified, reaching out and grabbing Bella's hands with both of his own. Elise, hold on a little longer. I'll pull Bella up first, then I'll get you. And then, on the giant monitor, came the close-up of Elise Emery. She didn't lose her grip because she slipped. She looked directly at Colsen's face, smiled with complete and utter contempt, and deliberately opened her fingers. She chose the two-story fall into the pool over his hand. Turn it off, Colsen choked out. Sir? I said turn it off, he shouted, sweeping a crystal water pitcher off the table. It shattered against the wall. Water and shards sprang across the hardwood floor. Colsen dropped into his chair, pressing both palms against his face. A suffocating agony tore through his ribcage. Every memory of the last 5 years flashed before his eyes with unbearable clarity. The night of the fire, he had run past her collapsed form in the smoky hallway. Because he saw the dog first, convinced that Elise, who was always so capable, had already saved herself. The night of the miscarriage, he had locked her in the guest room to comfort Bella over a head scratch, ignoring her desperate pleas, assuming she was just being dramatic. The countless anniversaries he skipped to fly to Europe to leave flowers on Bella's porch, unaware that the date coincided with the day Elise had buried her mother alone. She hadn't changed suddenly. He had killed her love piece by piece, day by day, until there was nothing left
To bleed.
The heavy doors swung open. Bella walked into the boardroom, carrying an expensive handbag, her eyes wide with manufactured concern. Colsen, darling? Tony told me you were here. Why haven't you slept?
You're
Making such a fuss over Elise running away. She's just trying to get your attention. Once her money runs out, she'll come crawling back. Shut up, Colsen whispered. Bella paused, her smile faltering. What? Colsen slowly stood up. When he looked at her, Bella took an instinctive step back. The man standing before her had bloodshot eyes, hollowed cheeks, and a look of cold, murderous disgust that made her skin crawl. Colsen, you're scaring me? Mark, Colsen said, his voice terrifyingly calm. Yes, Mr. Locke? Send both video files to the district attorney's office. File charges for intentional assault causing grievous bodily harm, attempted murder, and animal cruelty. Bella's face lost every shred of color.
Colsen.
Are you crazy? It's me.
It's Bella.
We grew up together. You loved me for 10 years. I was blind for 10 years, Colsen said, his voice dropping into a pit of Arctic ice. Cancel every sponsorship the Locke Group holds with the Kirk family. Businesses. Call our legal team to call in the loans we extended to her father. Last quarter. Every single cent. You can't do this to my family, Bella screamed, lunging forward to grab his lapel. Colsen. I did it for you. She was just a stand-in. You married her. Because she looked like me. Colsen shoved her away with such violence that she tumbled over a rolling office chair and crashed onto the carpet. She was never your stand-in, Colsen said, looking down at her as if she were a piece of rotting filth. You aren't fit to breathe the same air as her. He turned to his secretary. Get my jet ready. We're flying to London. Autumn in London arrived with a brisk, slate-gray sky that smelled of rain, wet stone, and roasted coffee beans. In an open-plan executive office on the 32nd floor of a skyscraper in Canary Wharf, Elise Emery signed her name across the final procurement audit for the Locke Vanguard European Logistics merger. She set the fountain pen down, rolled her shoulders, and leaned back in her ergonomic leather chair. Her hair was cut into a sharp, shoulder-length bob. The soft, girlish bangs she had worn for years to mimic Bella's signature look were gone, replaced by an elegant side part that accentuated the high angles of her cheekbones. She wore a bespoke charcoal wool trouser suit and a simple ivory silk blouse, no red dresses, no floral prints, no perfume that wasn't of her own choosing. Ms. Emery, her administrative assistant, a young British woman named Clara, knocked on the frosted glass door.
Come in, Clara.
The quarterly executive review is set for 3, but Mr. Ross from the London Infrastructure Group has just arrived early. He brought the revised port terminal projections. Send him in. A tall man in a tailored navy suit walked in. Julian Ross was 34 with sandy hair, sharp blue eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, and an easy, unassuming confidence. He had worked with Elise over the past 6 months on the cross-border restructuring, and unlike the domineering science of Santoria, Julian treated business with crisp professionalism and personal interactions with steady, unhurried respect. You're working through lunch again, Elise, Julian said, setting a folder on her desk along with a paper cup of flat white coffee. I specifically told Clara to confiscate your tablet between noon and 1. Elise smiled, taking the coffee. Old habits. In Santoria, if you didn't finish the quarterly audit ahead of schedule, the executive board would hold meetings until midnight. Well, you're in London now, Julian said, pulling up a chair opposite her.
We
respect proper tea hours and human limits. How are the legs feeling?
the damp.
Weather hasn't brought back the ache from the fracture? Not at all, Elise said, tapping her calf lightly. The orthopedic specialist in Zurich did wonders. I can run 5 kilometers in Regent's Park every morning, without a twinge. She spoke of her past injuries, the shattered ankle from the fall, the scarred calf from the dog bite, as if discussing an old bout of the flu. In her first 3 months in Europe, she had spent hours in a quiet therapy clinic in the Swiss Alps, untangling 10 years of emotional subjugation. She had wept once for the unborn child she had lost in that locked bedroom. She had grieved for the 18-year-old girl who had put on another woman's dress just to catch a man's passing glance. And then, like a fever breaking in the middle of the night, the sorrow had evaporated. She discovered she was brilliant at international logistics. She discovered she loved dry white wine, historical biographies, and walking along the South Bank in the drizzle without an umbrella. She was 30 years old, financially independent, respected by her peers, and completely beautifully whole. By the way, Julian said, checking his watch, are you attending the Anglo-Global Industrial Gala at the Dorchester tonight? The European Trade Delegation expects our department to make an appearance. Elise reviewed her calendar. I'll be there. Our logistics portfolio needs the shipping contracts from the Nordic Group. Splendid. Julian smiled. Shall I pick you up at 7? 7 is perfect. Thank you, Julian. For 6 months, Colsen Locke lived in hell. The mansion on Crestview Hill was immaculate, maintained by 3 shifts of staff, but to Colsen, it felt like an echoing crypt. Every evening, when his driver brought him back from the office, he would step into the foyer, his heart leaping into his throat for a fraction of a second, expecting to see a slender figure emerge from the kitchen carrying a bowl of hot soup, asking, "Did your stomach hurt today?" Then he would remember. There was no soup. There was no one waiting. He had fired Tony in a fit of rage, only to rehire him 3 days later with triple wages because Tony was the only person left in Santoria who remembered what Elise's voice sounded like when she was happy. Snowy, the Samoyed, had grown thin and listless. The dog refused to enter the master bedroom, spending entire days curled up on the rug outside Elise's former dressing room, whining whenever the front door clicked open. Colson's health had collapsed. His chronic gastritis flared into a severe ulcer that landed him in the ICU twice. Both times he woke up in the White Hospital room, his eyes darting frantically toward the door, hoping against hope that she would walk in with a thermos of porridge. Only his secretary and doctors stood there. Mr. Locke, his secretary, had whispered during the second hospitalization, the Kirk family has declared bankruptcy. Bella Kirk was sentenced yesterday to 3 years in prison for aggravated assault with intent to maim. Her father tried to plead for settlement, but your legal team refused all mediation. Colsen had stared at the ceiling, feeling nothing. Bella's ruin brought him no satisfaction, no peace, no closure. It was like stomping on an insect that had already ruined a priceless porcelain vase. The insect was dead, but the vase remained shattered forever. Did you find Elise? He asked, his voice cracked and raw. We tracked her corporate footprint, the secretary replied cautiously, handing him a tablet. She is currently serving as senior vice president of European supply operations for the multinational conglomerate. She is based in London. Colsen looked at the screen. It was an industry press release from 2 weeks ago. In the photograph, Elise stood on a dais in front of an international backdrop. She was laughing at something a handsome blonde man beside her was saying. Her face was radiant, her posture tall and relaxed, her eyes sparkling with intelligence and vitality. She had gained back the weight she lost during those 7 days in the precinct. She looked younger, sharper, and completely out of reach. She did not look like a woman who was nursing a broken heart. She looked like a woman who had never known him at all. Colsen gripped the edges of the tablet until the glass screen cracked beneath his thumbs. "Book a ticket to London," he whispered. "Tonight." The grand ballroom of the Dorchester on Park Lane was bathed in the warm amber glow of massive crystal chandeliers. Diamonds sparkled against velvet gowns, champagne flutes chimed in polite toasts, and the soft strains of a string quartet wove through the murmurs of European diplomats, aristocrats, and business moguls. Elise Emery stood near the floor-to-ceiling French windows overlooking Hyde Park, holding a glass of sparkling water. She wore an emerald green silk column gown that draped effortlessly across her collarbones, backless down to her waist, revealing smooth, unblemished skin.
A
Minimalist diamond pendant rested at the base of her throat. "You handle the Nordic representatives brilliantly," Julian said, stepping up beside her and handing her a small canopy. Lord Vane was ready to stall negotiations until next quarter, but your analysis of the Rotterdam port congestion completely disarmed him. "Data doesn't lie," Elise said with a light laugh. "When you remove emotion from the equation, people are forced to make the logical choice." A formidable philosophy. A deep, trembling voice rasped behind them. Elise's smile did not freeze. Her heart did not skip a beat. She turned around with the calm, measured grace of someone hearing a waiter approach with an appetizer tray. Colsen Locke stood 5 feet away. He wore a tailored black tuxedo, but the fabric hung loosely on his frame. His once impeccable jawline was sharp to the point of gauntness, dark purple shadows bruised the skin beneath his bloodshot eyes, and a streak of silver had crept into the hair above his left temple. He looked like a man who had walked through fire and had forgotten how to put out the embers burning his skin. Julian frowned slightly, stepping half an inch forward in a protective stance. "Can we help you, sir?" Colsen did not look at Julian. His entire universe had contracted into the woman standing in emerald green. "Elise," Colsen whispered. His voice was ragged, catching in his dry throat. Elise looked at him.
She didn't gasp.
She didn't drop her glass. She didn't look away. She simply looked at him the way one might look at an old acquaintance whose name required 3 seconds of polite recollection. "Mr. Locke," she said smoothly, her accent carrying the crisp, neutral cadence of international business English. "I wasn't aware the Locke Group was participating in the European Infrastructure Summit." "Mr. Locke." The 2 words hit Colsen like physical blows, knocking the air out of his lungs. For 5 years, she had called him Colsen, sometimes timidly, sometimes warmly, sometimes with desperate tears in her eyes. Now, Mr. Locke fell from her lips with the cold, polished detachment of a stranger greeting an elevator passenger. "Elise, please." Colsen took a stumbling step forward. Julian's brow tightened. "Sir, I believe you are intruding on a private conversation." "Julian, it's quite all right," Elise said, touching Julian's forearm with a gentle, reassuring smile. "This is an old business contact from Santoria.
Give
us 3 minutes." Julian looked between them, nodded courteously, and stepped toward the terrace.
doors.
"I'll be right outside if you need anything." "Thank you." When Julian walked away, Colsen felt a violent surge of jealousy and despair rip through his ribs. He recognized that touch. It was the soft, natural intimacy Elise used to give him when she would adjust his tie before a dinner party. Now, she gave it to someone else with effortless ease. "Elise." Colsen's hands shook as he reached toward her, his fingers stopping an inch from the silk of her sleeve, terrified that she would vanish if he touched her. "I looked for you for 6 months. I went to Frankfurt, to Zurich. I've been staying at the Savoy down the street for 2 weeks, just waiting for an invitation to this gala." "You shouldn't have wasted your company's resources, Mr. Locke," Elise replied, calmly, taking a slow sip of her water. "My relocation was processed legally, and our divorce has been finalized for half a year. We have no outstanding financial or legal ties." "I don't care about the company. I don't care about the legal ties." Colsen's voice cracked, drawing curious glances from an elderly French couple nearby.
He
lowered his voice, his chest heaving. "Elise, Bella, is in prison. I destroyed her family's business. I sent the security tapes to the court myself. I know everything about the dog, about the fire, about the balcony, about the miscarriage." Tears, hot and uncontrolled, welled in Colsen's eyes and spilled down his hollow cheeks. "I was blind. I was a monster," he choked out, his knees trembling as if he were ready to kneel before her on the parquet floor. "I thought you would always be
there.
I thought you would never leave. I didn't realize until you were gone that you were the only thing that mattered." He reached into his breast pocket with frantic, clumsy fingers and pulled out a velvet box. Inside lay a magnificent vintage diamond ring, the heirloom piece of the Locke family that his grandmother had worn, a ring he had once refused to give Elise on their wedding day, claiming it was in storage. "Come back with me," he begged, his voice breaking into a ragged sob. "We can remarry tomorrow. I'll transfer 80% of the Locke Group shares into your name. I'll buy a house in London, in Paris, anywhere you want. We can start over. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Please, Elise.
I
Can't breathe without you." Elise looked down at the glittering diamond. Then, she looked up at Colsen's weeping, broken face. There was no triumph in her expression. No vindictive joy.
no lingering gray.
Only a vast, quiet stillness. "Colsen," she said softly. It was the first time she had spoken his name that night, and Colsen's heart surged with a desperate, pathetic spark of hope. "Yes, Elise, I'm here.
I'm
Right here." "Do you know why I let go of that balcony railing?" she asked. Colsen's breath stopped. "It wasn't because I was trying to punish you," she said, her voice like a cool breeze moving through dry grass. "And it wasn't because I wanted to make you feel guilty. I let go because at that exact second, holding onto Bella's wrist and waiting for you to save me felt so utterly exhausting that dropping 2 stories into cold water seemed like peace." Colsen's face turned the color of ash. "For 10 years, I loved you," Elise continued, her tone steady, conversational, and devoid of rancor. "I loved you so much that I wore another woman's clothes, smiled through her insults, raised her dog, and endured the death of my child, alone in a locked room. I gave you every ounce of youth, dignity, and devotion I
had.
and when I hit that pool of water, every single drop of that love washed away." She looked straight into his bloodshot eyes. "I don't hate you, Colsen. I don't hate Bella. I don't hate the past. Because to hate someone, you still have to care what they think. And when I look at you right now, all I see is a stranger who made poor choices." Colsen felt as if his chest had been hollowed out with a rusty knife. He had prepared himself for her fury. He had prepared himself to be slapped, cursed, screamed at, sued, or spat upon. He had believed that beneath her anger lay the embers of her old devotion, that if he took enough blows, apologized enough times, and bled enough blood, he could reignite the fire. He had never imagined that the fire wasn't smoldering. It was out, cold, the hearth swept clean. You don't even hate me?" he whispered, his voice barely audible over the
Quartet.
"No," Elise said with a polite, genuine smile. "I wish you good health, Mr.
Locke.
And I hope your gastritis improves. You should drink less black coffee on an empty stomach." She finished her sparkling water and set the empty glass down on a passing waiter's silver tray. "Julian is waiting for me," she said gently. "Excuse me." She turned. Her emerald silk gown swished softly against the polished floor. She walked past the chandeliers, past the whispering dignitaries, toward the tall, sandy-haired man waiting by the terrace doors. Julian smiled as she approached, offering her his arm. Elise slipped her hand into the crook of his elbow, laughed at a comment he made, and together, they stepped through the glass doors into the crisp London night. She did not look back. Not once. 3 years later, Zurich in December was a world of white powder, glowing shopfronts, and the distant ringing of church bells across the Limmat River. Elise adjusted the collar of her camel cashmere coat as she stepped out of the headquarters of the European Logistics Consortium. Beside her, Julian carried a leather briefcase in one hand and 2 steaming cups of spiced hot cider in the other. "The board approved the expansion into the Nordic ports unanimously," Julian said, his breath pluming in the freezing mountain air. "They want you to take over the chief executive role for the entire continental division starting in March." Elise took a cup of cider, letting the cinnamon-scented warmth seep through her leather gloves. "I told them I'd accept on one condition, which is 4 weeks of mandatory annual leave in August. I want to spend a month sailing around the Greek islands." Julian laughed warmly, bumping his shoulder against hers. "A non-negotiable demand. I'll make sure the legal team writes it into the contract." They walked along the snow-dusted promenade toward the train station, the city lights reflecting like fallen stars in the dark, pristine water of Lake Zurich. A newsstand near the corner displayed the international edition of the Financial Times. Elise's gaze casually swept across the front page. In the lower right corner, a small corporate notice caught her eye. "Locke Group completes restructuring. Founder Colsen Locke steps down due to health complications, assets absorbed by state consortium." The accompanying photograph showed Colsen Locke being escorted from a private hospital in Santoria. He was only 34, but he leaned heavily on a polished wooden cane. His face was gaunt, his hair almost completely gray at the temples, his gaze fixed blankly on the pavement ahead of him. The article noted that the former industrial magnate had donated the entirety of his family estate on Crestview Hill to a pediatric medical charity moving into A secluded countryside sanitarium with a single white Samoyed dog. Elise looked at the photograph for 3 seconds. There was no flutter in her chest. No ache in her old wounds. No vindication in her mind. It was simply news about someone who lived on the other side of the planet, as distant and irrelevant as a weather report from a city she had visited once as a
child.
Elise. Julian stopped, looking back at her. Everything all right? Elise turned away from the newsstand and smiled at him, her eyes bright and clear under the golden street lamps. Everything is perfect, she said. She tossed the empty paper cup into the recycling bin, pulled her scarf snugly around her neck, and walked forward into the falling snow. The wind blew soft and cold from the Alps, carrying away the last remnants of the past, leaving behind only the wide, open sky and the road she had chosen for herself.